Good morning, friends. Happy Friday. Today is Friday, May 15th, and it is Purple Day of Spirit Week. It is also my birthday, which I know a few of you know, and I've already gotten some happy birthday messages, which have been very lovely. Thank you all. And my birthday is already off to a great start. So today, for Read Aloud, we got to get back to business. For Read Aloud, we have a new text. It's a new sort of text. I don't think we've ever read anything like this before during distance learning, so that's very exciting. But before we go into it, we're going to go right back to the distance learning folder so we can see how to access the materials. And just like I've been doing this week, I'm going to put the link to the distance learning folder underneath the video, as well as a link to today's materials. So we go to the distance learning materials, first grade, read aloud, May 11th to May 15th. We click on May 15th, and these are the materials. You have the sheet that you fill out while you're watching the video, and then the exit ticket that you fill out afterwards. Make sure that you're doing both, but you're only submitting the exit ticket. And then here's the passage that we're going to be reading today. So the passage that we're going to be reading is called Kirla's Quest. Now, we're about to start reading, and the first question that I want you guys to think about is, what is the genre of this article, this passage, this text, what we're reading today? So let me just make it a little bigger, and let's get started. Kirla's Quest. Kirla stood open-mouthed in the corner of the doorway. The cavernous room before her must have been used as a ballroom once, a long time ago when the royal family was still in residence and the land was green and prosperous. Kirla's mind was briefly pulled back to the miles of desolate, scorched earth and burned villages she had traveled through to get here. She shook her head to clear the images. Moonlight streamed through the windows, giving the ballroom a soft, eerie glow. The room was filled with treasure, mountains of gold coins, jewelry of all kinds, gold chalices, candelabras, and countless precious gems. And of course, just as she expected, atop the largest mound lay the dragon. Dragon. She'd heard tales of the mighty Krawl since childhood, the terrible and merciless dragon that came from the mountains in the east to lay waste to the kingdom of Anslor. Though he'd been described as enormous, she had not imagined that any creature could be as large as the one that now lay deep in slumber before her. She drew her sword. The enchanted blade shimmered in the moonlight, the sword of Anslor, thought to be the only weapon that could slay the dragon. Now she would see if the legend held true. So that is actually the end of the text. I know a lot of you are like, what? What's going to happen? But we will talk about that in a little bit. So as I was reading, I hope you were thinking about, what is the genre of this story? I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to think about it and write it down. What's the genre of this story? Go ahead. All right. So when we're thinking about the genre of the story, or the genre of the text. I might have given it away with saying that it was a story. When we're thinking about the genre of the text, we have to think about whether the text is teaching us something or it's telling us a story. This text is about a girl who is on she's visiting, or she went to a castle, and she found some treasure, and there's a dragon sitting on top of the treasure, and she's got this special sword, and she's going to use it to try and slay the dragon. Now this doesn't sound like anything that has happened, or anything that's happening now in real life. So to me, this definitely seems like a fiction text. You can also tell because it's telling us a story, and it's not really teaching us about anything. It's not teaching us about swords. It's not teaching us about dragons. It's not teaching us about treasure. Um, it's telling us a story about this girl, Kirla. So the genre of this text is fiction. The next question is actually one of those multiple choice questions. So we're gonna exit the presentation so that we can use the marker. And today is purple day, so we're gonna use purple. All right, so this question is, what does the word cavernous mean? Cavernous, that's a really big word. What does the word cavernous mean? Well, the first thing that we have to do is go back to where it was used. And for the sake of time, I'm going to underline it here so we know where to look to see what it means. So I'm going to read the text around it and see if you can figure out what it means from what I've read. Kirla stood open-mouthed in the corner of the doorway. The cavernous room before her must have been used as a ballroom once, a long time ago when the royal family was still in residence and the land was green and prosperous. All right, so cavernous. So Kirla stood. She's in the doorway of this room, and her mouth is open. She's shocked. When your mouth is open and you're standing there, like looking around, like you're shocked. And we have to think about what she's shocked about. And this cavernous um, word is telling us what exactly she's shocked about. We also know that this room was a ballroom. Now, a ballroom is where royal families would have lots of people over, like hundreds and hundreds of people over, and they would dance. Now, if you were to be in a room that has enough room for lots and lots of people to dance, this room would have to be pretty big. So let's see if big, or a word like big, is one of those words that are in the options on the multiple choice question. So what does the word cavernous mean? A, purple. B, huge. C, loud. Okay, so we know that cavernous has to mean something like big. So I'm thinking that it's going to mean huge, because huge and big are, it's called synonyms. They mean similar things. But let's double check to make sure that purple and loud aren't options either. So we're going to go back to the text, and when it says cavernous, we're going to substitute the word purple. So the purple room before her must have been used as a ballroom once, a long time ago when the royal family was still in residence and the land was green and prosperous. Now, the word purple could fit, um, but it's not the best choice, because Kirla is not going to be surprised when she sees a purple room. And the color of the room isn't really that important to the story, so we're not going to pick purple. We're going to cross purple out. Goodbye. Crossing purple out with purple. And then loud. Let's see about loud. The loud room before her must have been used as a ballroom once, a long time ago when the royal family was still in residence and the land was green and prosperous. Now we know that the royal family used to live there, but they don't anymore. And it doesn't sound like anyone lives in this castle anymore, except for maybe this dragon that we hear about later. Um, and so there's nothing that's going to be loud in this room. So we can also cross out the word loud, which means that the only correct answer for this question is huge. The word cavernous means huge. All right. The next question asks you, why did Kirla come to the castle? Why did Kirla come to the castle? All right. So let's go back to the text. Um, so let's see what each paragraph is about. This paragraph is introducing us to the character and kind of what she's doing, but it doesn't really say why she's doing it. So we know that she's come to the castle, but we don't know why from this paragraph. So we're not going to look here. Now we get a little bit more detail in this paragraph. We see, I'm going to read it, see if you can figure out some key details. Moonlight streamed through the windows, giving the ballroom a soft, eerie glow. The room was filled with treasure, mountains of gold coins, jewelry of all kinds, gold chalices, candelabras, and countless precious gems. And of course, just as she expected, atop the largest mound lay the dragon. Okay, so now we know that there's treasure in this room, and we also know there's a dragon in this room. But we still don't know why she's come to the castle. She could have come to take some of the treasure. She could have come to befriend the dragon. We don't really know yet. So let's keep reading. She'd heard tales of the mighty Crawl, I think that's how you pronounce it, since childhood. The terrible and merciless dragon that came from the mountains in the east to lay waste to the kingdom of Anslor. Though he'd been described as enormous, she had not imagined that any creature could be as large as the one that now lay deep in slumber before her. Okay, so now we've learned more about the dragon. The dragon has caused destruction. Dragon is not a nice dragon. It has done some very mean things. So I don't think that this main character is going to become friends with the dragon. So we've figured out what she's not going to do, or reasons that don't explain why she's come to the castle. Um, so let's keep reading to figure out the reason why she has come to the castle. She drew her sword. The enchanted blade shimmered in the moonlight. The sword of Anslor, thought to be the only weapon that could slay the dragon. Now she would see if the legend held true. All right, so this is the paragraph that tells us why she came to the castle. So take about 30 seconds and you can read this paragraph to yourself if you need to, and write down why you think Kirla came to the castle. Go ahead. All right, so in this paragraph, we learn that she has a sword and that it's a special sword. It's a magical sword that is thought to be the only weapon that can slay the dragon. So this dragon has caused a lot of destruction. We don't like the dragon. Seems to be guarding some treasure that maybe people need that doesn't belong to this dragon. So um, they have the main character, Kirla, has the sword to slay the dragon. That means to kill the dragon. Um, and in this last sentence right here, it says, now she would see if the legend held true. That means that now she would see if this sword would actually slay the dragon. So why did she come to the castle? She came to the castle to slay the dragon or to kill the dragon. All right, now we're going to move on to some of those true false questions. So we're going to write T for true or F for false. Um, so the first one is, people still lived in the castle. All right, so take about 30 seconds. The evidence for the answer is on this page, so I will leave it up and you see if you can find the evidence. Go ahead. All right, so the question asks true or false, people still lived in the castle. Oops, that's not the right page. So we know that the evidence for this answer is on this page. Um, so let's read through it and see if we can find it. Kirla stood open-mouthed in the corner of the doorway. The cavernous room before her must have been used as a ballroom once, a long time ago when the royal family was still in residence and the land was green and prosperous. Okay, so we know that the room had been used as a ballroom a long time ago when the royal family lived there. The royal family no longer lives there anymore. Otherwise, it would still be used as a ballroom. So, this is the text evidence. When the royal family was still in residence, that means that they still lived there. And that also means that they don't live there anymore. So, the correct answer to this question is false. All right, the next question, true or false? There was a dragon on top of the treasure. Oh boy, there was a dragon on top of the treasure. The evidence for that question, or the answer for that question, is going to be found on this page. So take about 30 seconds and see if you can find the text evidence. Go ahead. Okay, so we have learned that in this room, there's lots of treasure. The room was filled with treasure, mountains of gold coins, jewelry of all kinds, gold chalices, candelabras, and countless precious gems. And of course, just as she expected, atop the largest mound lay the dragon. So, is there a dragon on top of this treasure? Yeah, there is. Atop the largest mound lay the dragon. That's our text evidence. So, true or false? There was a dragon on top of the treasure. That is true. That is true. All right, now, true or false? Dragon was very small. Dragon was very small. Um, the evidence for that question will be on this page. So take about 30 seconds and see if you can find that evidence. And you can figure out if that question or the answer is true or false. The dragon was very, what was it? The dragon was very small, very small. True or false? See if you can find it. Go. All right, so this paragraph says she'd heard tales of the mighty Crawl since childhood, the terrible and merciless dragon that came from the mountains in the east to lay waste to the kingdom of Anslor. Though he'd been described as enormous, and we know that enormous means really big or huge or gigantic, any of those words, she had not imagined that any creature could be as large as the one that now lay deep in slumber before her. So, even in her wildest dreams, she could not have imagined just how big this dragon was. So, true or false? The dragon was very small. That's false because the dragon was huge. It was gigantic. It was enormous. All right, the last question. Kirla was certain that the sword she carried would kill the dragon. True or false? It's going to be here. The evidence will be here. Um, so try and determine whether that question is true or false. Go ahead. All right, so when we go back to that question, Kirla was certain that the dragon or that the sword she carried would kill the dragon crawl. Now, when it says she was certain, it said that means that she was absolutely 110% positive that this sword that she had was going to kill the dragon. And the text evidence for that question is actually the same piece of text evidence that we already underlined. It says, now she would see if the legend was true. And the legend is that the sword that she had is the only weapon that could slay the dragon. Now, if she still had to see if the legend was true, then she was not 110% sure that the sword would kill the dragon. So the answer to this question is false. Kirla was not certain. She did not know 110% that the sword she carried would kill the dragon. So you should have false, true, false, and false. All right, now we get to move on to the exit ticket. So this exit ticket is going to be a little different today. You are going to imagine you were the author of this story. How will the story end? Write at least one paragraph predicting, it should say what will happen next. Be sure to write in complete sentences and include many details. So, I'm sure when we first read through this text, some people were like, "What? That's the end? Like we don't know what happens. We don't know whether the dragon is killed. We don't know what happens to Kirla. We don't know what happens to the kingdom when when or the treasure." So now it's your turn. You get to write the ending to this story. Make sure that you have written at least one paragraph. You've written in complete sentences and you've included lots and lots of details. That means that you're including lots of describing words like big, enormous. You can use like color words like purple or blue or red. You can use words like fast or slow or anything that would describe what's going on more. You should use those in your paragraph or paragraphs for to end the story. Um, and I cannot wait to read them because I know that you guys are super creative. So you're going to have really creative endings to your stories. All right, my friends, awesome job today. Thank you again to those who already wished me a happy birthday. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day and you have a great weekend. And I will see you on Monday.